November 2020. More than half a year into the COVID-19 pandemic in the Philippines. Government health workers had reached their boiling point.
Ang mga health workers ng Philippine General Hospital ay hindi pa rin natatanggap ang special risk allowance.
In March 2020, the government promised medical frontliners a special risk allowance for their service during the pandemic. But by the end of that year, many workers, particularly nurses, had not gotten their due.
Siguro during this pandemic, naka-receive ako ng special risk allowance. Once lang, it's around 6,000 pesos.
It's not just hard work though. The risks are real. Casey Ann Cruz's mother, a nurse, died of COVID-19.
Kung binigyan lang ng masapat na priority yung mga nurses, yung mga doctors, yung mga frontliners, baka sana buhay pa siya.
The coronavirus pandemic has pushed hospitals around the world to their breaking point. It's hard to find another moment in recent history when medical workers were more vital. And we're not just talking about doctors. For years, the Philippines has been one of the most reliable sources of foreign nurses. Many Filipinos take up nursing specifically to be able to work abroad. And now these nurses are needed back home, even though the working conditions for them are far from ideal.
When we met John Mark, or JM, he was working at the government-run National Children's Hospital. He had worked his way up to become a senior staff nurse at the surgery ward. It took a decade of nursing to get to this position. But his ultimate goal is to work abroad.
So we are inside the operating room area of the National Children's Hospital, and over there, JM is helping out in the post-op operations of a child. Now, he's been working here for about 5 years, and prior to this stint in the operating room area, he'd been doing the rounds of different wards in this same hospital. So you can imagine it takes years and a lot of work experience before a Filipino nurse is able to work abroad.
James' main motivation for wanting to work overseas, a better future.
Honestly, working in the Philippines as a nurse is difficult. Financially, hindi siya stable. Hindi siya as stable job as others na pwede kang makapag-provide sa family like house and lot, makabili ka ng kotse. If someone sa family member yung magkasakit or magkaroon ng financial struggle, hindi ka makakatulong ng fully kasi ikaw mismo hindi ka nakakapag-save ng malaki.
JM worked 12-hour shifts, assisting surgeons in some of the most critical and complicated pediatric cases in the country. But by the end of his 10-year stint, his monthly salary barely reached $650 a month. Nurses in the private sector make even less.
It's only around 11,000 pesos a month, which is about $220 per month. But in reality, in the private sector, not all employers are implementing the minimum wage law. So the average monthly pay of our nurses in the private sector is around 5,000 to 8,000 pesos a month.
5,000 to 8,000 pesos. That's just a little over $100. 5,000 pesos.
True. Yeah. They cannot even accommodate other basic needs for their own survival.
Nurses and other healthcare workers in the Philippines are not just underpaid, they're overworked. In government facilities, one nurse typically attends to 60 patients. The coronavirus pandemic has exacerbated these long-standing labor issues.
Naka-receive ako ng special risk allowance. Once lang, it's around 6,000 pesos, which is for me, hindi yun enough.
Ito po yung sinasabi na kaya kahit gaano kahirap yung trabaho sa ibang bansa, and in fact, mas maraming COVID sa ibang bansa kaysa dito, parang mas worth it pa rin.
Yes, sir. Ganun talaga yung mafe-feel ng nurse dito sa Philippines. Na parang overwork ka na, pagod ka, sobrang dami ng patients na ni-handle mo, nahihirapan ka sa situation during pandemic, tapos underpaid ka pa, tapos wala ka pa nakukuhang support. So talagang mapaisip ka na talagang yung mga nurses abroad, although affected din sila ng pandemic, ng COVID-19, they have all the support by the government itself, ng ibang countries.
James' family gets by. But he has bigger dreams. For one, to provide his mother luxuries she's never had. But he doesn't believe those dreams will ever materialize if he doesn't leave the country.
Would it be accurate to say na nag-nursing ka talaga para makapagtrabaho abroad?
Yes, sir. Yun talaga yung nilulook up ng every Filipino nurse. So, ang mangyayari, sir, pag nakapag-build na ako ng career ko abroad and maging maayos na ako, financially stable, and yung career ko maging maayos din, that's when the time na pwede ko matulungan din yung ibang tao around me, like my family, yung iba kong relatives.
JM was actually close to reaching his lifelong goal.
I was supposed to go to the UK ng April 2020. Then, nagkaroon kasi ng national lockdown ng March 14. So, hindi nag-push to yung visa processing ko and all. Then, nagkaroon ako ng decision na magstay pa sa work than to resign and to wait for my deployment. Then, in-advise kami ng agency na magre-resume yung deployment for nurses on October.
Shortly after quarantine restrictions were put in place, however, an unexpected announcement came.
When the government announced na magkakaroon ng nationwide deployment ban, especially for healthcare workers and nurses, kahit pa paano, nagkaroon din ako ng takot na hindi ako makalis abroad or ma-turn down yung application ko na on process right now.
The ban on the deployment of Filipino healthcare workers overseas was a blow to thousands who already had employment contracts. But Philippine health authorities say it was necessary at the time.
Was there really a need for that total deployment ban?
Yes, because if you notice or if you have noted, last March, April, and May, that was the surge of cases among our healthcare workers. Therefore, the government has to decide to ban the deployment so that we can use and we can encourage these nurses to work for us here in the country so that we can be able to supplement the existing cadres in our hospital.
Nursing industry leaders disagree.
We have more than 200,000 unemployed and underemployed nurses in the country. So there's no need to hold the 5,000, for example, or 6,000 nurses who are already about to leave the country because they have contracts in their destination countries.
The government did eventually relent. Although officials have now capped deployment of healthcare workers overseas to only 5,000 a year. JM was finally able to leave for the UK in January 2021, where he's now making 6 times what he earned in the Philippines. The salary is higher, but so are the risks. The UK's death toll was the highest in Europe, when JM landed. And in the United States, a report by National Nurses United published in September 2020 found that of 200 nurses who died from COVID-19, a third were Filipinos, even though they only make up 4% of America's nursing workforce. Merlin Pampuan, who's been living in California for over 40 years, working in an intensive care unit, never thought that one day she'd find herself admitted to one.
I could feel that I think I had it. I went to emergency room and they did a chest x-ray on me. When I saw the film, I got pleural effusion and I think I'm gonna be positive. So I'm right, I'm positive. So they sent me to the isolation. That was like 9 o'clock at night. And then at 12 midnight, they call rapid response. They had to transfer me to ICU right away.
That was the beginning of an almost year-long ordeal for Merlin and her family.
8 to 9 months at the hospital. It's a long time. I lost my 2020. I was in the hospital most of the year. Everything that would happen in intensive care unit, they intubated me really hard. I'm agitated. My blood pressure is up. I don't have any recollection. I don't know anything. I don't remember. And one of my good friends started explaining to me, and I was shocked that I almost died too many times.
I did have a doctor approach me and tell me, so basically your mom's not getting any better and you and your dad need to make a decision about what facility you guys want to send her to. But sir, until mom is brain dead, until organs are failing, there was always hope.
What do you think got you through this whole ordeal?
Well, I have to fight because of my daughter. And I said, I'm not gonna die yet. I won't let it happen. Then I pray. Always pray. And I said, this COVID is not gonna take me away from my daughter. I will fight you, so go away. I'm telling the truth, that's what I'm saying. I said, COVID, go away. I said, I'm not gonna let you put me down.
Merlin believes she caught the virus at work. Do you blame anyone for what happened to you?
I can blame anyone because it happened. It happened to anyone. Because I work in the hospital and I didn't even know, I'm taking care of the patient that we're not allowed to use mask or anything at that time because it's not really heavy at that time. And then they asked us to use mask and doing everything, but still I got it for some reason. I really don't know.
But despite her life-threatening battle with COVID-19, Merlin says she's not sure she's ready to give up her job. But it's a difficult decision to make for you, Tita Merlin.
It is, but I'm still thinking about it. I don't think I can retire anytime. I don't need to come back, but that decision is still, I'm concentrating on my recovery.
The kind of devotion Merlin has for her work and patients is what Filipino nurses have become known for. Doesn't matter where they are and how much they're making. Stories of Filipino nurses who chose to serve their countrymen next. Healthcare workers in the Philippines have been grappling with one of the worst coronavirus crises in Southeast Asia. At one point, the situation was so bad that even those not working in COVID-19 wards, like Maria Teresa Cruz, were at risk.
Our mom is a high-risk nurse. She is diabetic and has a cardiopulmonary problem even before, and then na stroke na siya back in 2018.
You said she was a pediatric nurse, diba? So hindi siya sa COVID ward.
Yes, but the problem is, pag pumasok ka sa hospital, you don't get tested. So kahit operation ward ka or pedia ward, ER ka, hindi mo alam kung sino yung carrier doon ng COVID.
Okay lang ba na makuha yung...
Casey tried to prevent her mother from going back to work after she had exhibited COVID-19 symptoms for the first time in March. But Teresa was unstoppable.
Yun yung first time niya din na sobrang lungkot niya talaga kasi gusto na niya bumalik sa work and sobrang nahihiya siya dun sa mga workmates niya kasi ang liit na nga nung ratio ng workforce nila dun sa mga patients. Gusto na niya makabalik sa trabaho.
She did. But after just a few months back at work, she caught COVID-19.
July 21, in-intubate siya. Sobrang sakit. Nag-struggle talaga siya. Tinatanggal niya. Ginangat-ngat niya. Magka-video call na kami nun nung ate ko na nag-updatean kami. Actually, feeling ko mas mahirap yun sa kanya kasi nakita niya kung paano nangyari lahat eh. Naikabit ulit yung tube. Pero nag-flatline na. So, ang dineclare ng doktor, cardiac arrest. Secondary yung COVID-19. So sabi ko kay ate, since pinsan namin yung doktor, parang 1 hour pa siya ni-revive. I-try nyo. Try nyo pa. 1 hour siyang tinatry na i-revive. Pero wala na. Hindi na talaga niya kinaya.
Teresa once dreamed of greener pasture in a foreign land. That had to take a backseat as she raised her children. But she continued living a life of service in her homeland. A lifelong vocation that Casey and her siblings feel is underappreciated.
Kung binigyan lang ng masapat na priority yung mga nurses, yung mga doctors, yung mga frontliners, baka sana buhay pa siya. Yung lack of PPEs, napaka-sisipin natin sa atin. Wala naman tayo sa medical field. Baka maliit na usapin lang. Pero yun yung problema eh.
The family received the government-mandated $20,000 death benefit. But health workers advocates say that's beside the point.
They know we are important, but they are not ensuring our protection at the workplace, even at the height of global pandemic. For instance, there is rising number of health workers infected by COVID-19 because of inadequate PPEs. Most of the hospitals only implement 3 to 5 or 7 days quarantine period. It is a risky decision on the part of the government to reduce the quarantine period, because by the time that the nurse will be able to observe, for example, the symptoms or experience the symptoms of COVID-19, they might have been already reporting back to their work.
Despite the lack of support for medical workers, however, Gerald Viel has decided to abandon his dreams of working abroad and to serve his hometown. But it was a decision sparked by a personal tragedy that happened when he was in the final stages of securing a nursing job overseas.
During that preparation, my father died. Actually, he died last March. And I was shocked because, you know, I am planning to go abroad for my mother and for my father. And then the last words or statement that he said to me was, I'm having a chest pain. And you know what? There's I think 5 minutes of, you know, my mind was blank. It's my work I'm teaching how to save lives. I'm training nurses to save lives. But during the time that my father needs me, I wasn't there. Then when I saw my father in the coffin already, my decisions, my plans really changed. I don't want to happen this kind of situation or this kind of event to other family members that I'm not around.
Gerald's final decision is to quit his higher-paying job in the city and move back home. Even if that means having to work in a smaller hospital.
We have good nurses in the province, but the limitation of resources, the limitation of training is present. So I realized while I'm in my family we're serving my family, my mom, because she's alone now. I also want to make difference in our province.
Because Gerald has advanced degrees in hospital management and years of professional experience behind him, he's confident he can continue building on his nursing career in the Philippines. But he acknowledges that not everyone has the privilege.
They are just in a situation where they really need to go abroad to earn more for their family. But if you're going to ask them, do you really want to stay here in the country? Right now, some of the nurses that go abroad or went abroad doesn't have a choice.
So what is your dream for the nursing profession here in the Philippines?
I want nurses like me that if I'm a high school student, I will not take nursing course because major reason is to go abroad. So I dream to change that perception of the future nurses, that they took up nursing or nursing profession not to go abroad, but rather to work here in the country.
When the pandemic eases, travel restrictions are going to be lifted. We can expect labor migration to pick up where it left off. Filipino nurses will continue to serve away from home. But many nurses hope the health crisis is enough of a wake-up call for the Philippines to give them what they're due at home. For Assignment Asia, I'm Barnaby Lo. Share your thoughts and contribute story ideas to our show by contacting us on social media.